now call it Spygate. You're calling it Spygate. A lot of bad things have happened. I want them all to get together. They'll sit in a room. Hopefully they'll be able to work it out among themselves. We're not undercutting. We're cleaning everything up. What I want is total transparency.
Any meeting between the Justice Department and Capitol Hill about such information should only be attended by members of the Gang of Eight.
I don't care who comes. I'm not in control of the invite list.
Well, this meeting is going forward. We mentioned it earlier with John Roberts. The meeting tomorrow will include the House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes, the House Oversight Committee Chairman Trey Gowdy, the FBI Director, the National Intelligence Director, and the Acting Principal Deputy Attorney General. All of those will be at this meeting at the DOJ about the classified elements of this investigation. But we're being told that there will likely be another meeting with the Gang of Eight, the bipartisan leadership of Congress, possibly after the Memorial Day recess. We'll start there with all this investigation of the investigation and bring in the panel. Joining me here in Los Angeles, Steve Hilton, former advisor to British Prime Minister David Cameron and host of The Next Revolution here on Fox News, and Leslie Marshall, syndicated talk radio host, and in Washington, Mara Liasson, national political correspondent of National Public Radio, and Matthew Continetti, editor-in-chief of the Washington Free Beacon. Steve, let me start with you. Your thoughts on how this is all coming out and the significance of it.
Well, Brett, it wasn't that long ago that the left and parts of the establishment media, I'm thinking in particular the New York Times, were deeply suspicious of what we now describe as the deep state. When we had James Clapper going to Congress and lying about surveilling the American people, there's this suspicion of the security services and the intelligence agencies. And now that they seem to be against Trump, we're supposed to believe that they're purer than pure, everything that they say is gospel, and there's no grounds for any suspicion. I think there's no question that there are sufficient reasons to think that the establishment in the government bureaucracy thought that the prospect of a Trump presidency was unthinkable, unacceptable, and took steps to try and stop it. There's enough suspicion there to think that we really do need a thorough investigation that's equivalent to the investigation in Russia meddling, which is really important, to look at the potential of deep state meddling.
Mara, I don't know. Are you calling it Spygate? Who's calling it Spygate?
I'm
the president
not,
said
but
that
the president is very happy, it sounds, that he's branded something new. He is a super brander, and he's come up with Spygate, and as he said today, you're calling it Spygate, I'm calling it Spygate, everyone's talking about this. He said it could be the biggest scandal in American history. What he's talking about, according to his tweets, is that there was someone, a spy, as he calls it, embedded in his campaign for political purposes to spy on the campaign. So far, there's no evidence of that. We don't know if he's talking about an FBI informant who met with certain members of the campaign, reached out to them to find out what contacts they had with Russians. But if the president wanted to, he can declassify any piece of information he wants. He could have asked any of his intelligence officials over the last couple of weeks or months to say, hey, tell me what you know. Was there a spy embedded in my campaign? I don't think he wants to know. I think he wants to keep this story going. This is a good narrative for him, and it helps him undermine the credibility of the investigations into him and his campaign.
Yeah, I want to talk about another development, Leslie, and that is the Jared Kushner getting security clearance today, finally, after a long period of time. A national security law attorney, former FBI agent, told us, quote, this is a very significant development. The Bureau would have had very senior people on this, and the matter would have been reviewed and approved at the most senior levels. Given all the circumstances, this decision would be highly vetted and considered. They wouldn't be deeming him eligible for access to classified materials, no matter what level of the clearance, if there were any outstanding counterintelligence concerns whatsoever. Again, a very significant development. One person's assessment of this. Your thoughts?
Well, I don't think that Jared Kushner is the problem. I think the president and his rhetoric are the problem. And I think that's caused a problem not only for his son-in-law, but the tensions that we have seen with the rhetoric toward the FBI and other law enforcement agencies that are supposed to be working for our country and for the Constitution and have their loyalty there. When we go back to Mara's point, when you call this Spygate, and I know I'm not calling it Spygate, okay? I just want to go on the record there.
And I don't think we've called it Spygate. I'm pretty sure.
I'll bet you in a couple of weeks you will. That's the way it goes.
Let's just speak about Spygate, if we will. The role of the FBI and anybody, even if they've worked for a Republican president, if it is this gentleman all the way back to Ronald Reagan, is to do exactly this, is to say, hey, wait a minute, there have been some conversations between Russia and those in the United States. Paul Manafort has been indicted. Paul Manafort is one of the people that was spoken to. And to Mara's point, the president certainly has the power to find out if there was a spy embedded, if there truly was Spygate. This is deflection. Why deflect from the Mueller special counsel investigation if there's nothing to hide, if there's no there?
Both things are going forward, and we always say we don't know what we don't know, but we're covering both sides. The reason I bring up the Jared Kushner thing is how that was covered early on in this process suggested that because of all his foreign contacts and all of this, the questions that were raised about Jared Kushner, that there was no way he was going to get security clearance and somehow he could be charged or indicted. That was the coverage and the speculation. Now he's cleared.
Right, and as one former official told Catherine Herridge in her report, Brett, that would imply that those counterintelligence concerns no longer exist if he has been granted this security coverage. I like to quote Donald Rumsfeld. There are so many known unknowns about now the investigation into Russian interference and also the investigation of the investigation, which is really, let's remember, coming from Congress. As much as Donald Trump is publicizing it and, in fact, aiding it, there are a lot of concerns from the House Intelligence Committee about how did this start. And I think that's one of the great known unknowns, rather, is when did this investigation open? What was in the original order that Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein gave to Robert Mueller? We still don't know the full details of that. We also don't know about this other British or semi-British professor, Mifsud, who met with George Papadopoulos. He hasn't been seen in public in months. So the known unknowns continue to mount.
Mara, where do you think this goes, and how fast do you think it comes to resolution?
I really don't know. We know what Rudy Giuliani says about it, that he'll be done by September. Mueller will be done by September. The problem with covering this is that every little twist and turn, we don't know the big picture. Bob Mueller isn't talking, to his credit. So we're covering this through a straw, and everything seems like the biggest deal. I just would say the bottom line to me for today for Jared Kushner, this was a good day for Jared Kushner, and it was a good week for Jared Kushner because he started working on a substantive policy that has bipartisan support in Congress, and that's prison reform.
Well, that's exactly right. We'll be following that as it makes its way. It's already passed the House and now headed to the Senate. All right. Tomorrow we will have the Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell.